Hello and welcome to Bonus Action Dash. My name is Jaren and this is Sunday D&D Prep, a stream in which I pull back the curtain and show you what goes into prepping a session of D&D. My game specifically, we're running Rime of the Frostmaiden and we are in the final chapters of the game. Now, if you are new to the channel, new to this stream, the intent here is at the least to be entertaining, and if nothing else, if maybe you are looking at running D&D yourself, this could provide some insight into what actually goes into prepping a session. Maybe you'll learn something, maybe it's just fun to watch. And as always, these are the actual notes that I will be using in tonight's game. And by the time that I'm sitting down here to actually type them up, I've done a lot of work off screen that's not so fun to stream. Things like thinking about the game, thinking of what I want to do, what's coming next, what I need to do still, actually reading the source material, researching what music tracks I might want to include in tonight's game. The stuff that's not so exciting to stream to people, you know, that sort of stuff is, I enjoy doing it, but it's I'm not going to turn on the camera and stream for an hour while I research and do some reading, right? I'm going to talk about the notes that I'm taking and the key things that I need to do in order to get ready for tonight's game. So, all that nonsense out of the way, let's go ahead and jump into the actual prep part of this stream today. As I mentioned, we are running the 5th edition adventure, Rime of the Frostmaiden, and last week, I do need to continue on from last stream because we didn't actually have a session last week. We had a number of people that were not going to be able to make it, and we weren't able to find a time during the week to make that up. So I'm going to be continuing on with some of the notes that I already took last week, and maybe just building on the things that I already know and have ready to go. The players are getting ready to delve into the Spire of Irialarthus. Come to the map here. That would be this gigantic location here in the center of the map. They're researching and they've found their way to the lost city of Ithrin and have just about completed all the things they need to do to actually finally unlock the tower, in which a lot of key information regarding the endgame resides. And that's this giant spire here that's a good 1,200 feet tall. The map doesn't quite give it a good idea of its scale. But after they complete, they have one more encounter to do, which is going to be their last piece of the puzzle for the Arcane Octad. Once they have that, they will be in the Spire, and I know last week we kind of took a look at the first level of the Spire, and I know that this week I wanted to be able to go through the entirety of the Spire, just so I had it ready to go. And so that's kind of what I was doing during the week, was just reading and researching what actually is in there and how it works, and things that I might get tripped up by if I were to just read it on the fly that I might want to prepare in advance for. So to recap what happened leading into this session, they had concluded a final showdown encounter with a character named Dazan, who was kind of a throwback to an earlier section of the game. And come to find out, Dazan had beat them here and was trying to unlock the obelisk for his own purposes. He knows where Esther is. Esther is the NPC ally of one of our characters. Who were close classmates in College of Magic back in Neverwinter. I think they came from. And so he knows exactly where Esther is. He brought Esther down to Ithrin with him to help him find the key that he needed to unlock the obelisk or activate the obelisk. He's not really sure how it works. So they had this final encounter with him, ended up defeating him in combat, and were able to acquire the piece of the Octad that he had already acquired. And so they have that piece from him now. They returned back to the mansion at the Tower of... where was this? I always forget the names of these. Back at the Tower of Conjuration, where they have discovered a magical mansion, the Magnificent Mansion, that is a part of that tower. They managed in that combat encounter with Dazan to save he was sort of the artificial Dazan, the one that was created with a simulacrum spell, who they found at the Lost Spire of Netheril way back a long time ago, and were able to turn him into a real person with the rune chamber. Really cool moment in the campaign. And so he's kind of been following them around for a while. Encountered him here in this encounter with Dazan, and they were able to save the good one, the one that was sort of nice, and who I'd imagine as a simulacrum had taken just a single facet of real Dazan's personality. That was one that was like a lot kinder, a lot more inquisitive about the world, and really just wanting to go explore. So now he is following the party, the good Dazan, who's now just the only Dazan. I don't have to start calling him Dazan Prime or anything like that anymore. And he is back at the Tower of Conjuration in the mansion. Now with the understanding that he can kind of follow his own orders. He doesn't have to listen to real Dazan anymore, and that's a new thing for him. So he's going to spend the day just kind of thinking about what he wants to do. He's not really sure. And that's kind of where we left off. The party had a pretty wild night going into their long rest. It was the last night of the month, the full moon as well, and we have now 2 worshippers of Saloon, a recent convert and... Hello, phone. And our character, Gwendrel, who is a Twilight cleric follower of Saloon. So it's been sort of his thing that on the full moon, he does some sort of ritual to honor Saloon. And so part of the mansion, part of the effects, part of the features of the magnificent mansion is that it can kind of be whatever you want it to be. And they are now basically the owners of it, as the previous owner, the Archmage of Conjuration, no longer exist there. And so they're pretty much able to have the say in what rooms exist in this tower, in this mansion. So they decided that, Gwendrel decided that he wanted to have some really cool room that was this big dome-shaped sort of thing, big open grassy field, stone fire pit in the middle, and a domed ceiling that had depictions of Saloon and her servants. And they were going to use that room to have this sort of a pagan ritual, I guess you could say, in tribute to Saloon, where they, it had all this like milk and honey as part of the ritual, and there was lots of drinking, and as you do, it was tearing off of clothes and just sort of dancing in the moonlight and the glory of Saloon, and a fun night for everybody. And that's kind of after they had returned back to the tower from that specific room. That's kind of where we ended the session. And so we pick back up the next morning with them getting ready for this final encounter, that with the entity known as Scrivenscry, the Arcanoloth who had come to Ethering sort of accidentally with his lackey, an awakened albino penguin named Kingsport. And the party first encountered him in the Etheren library when they came upon him just sort of searching through the books, through the tomes. He was looking for the books of names, I think is what they're called, or books of keeping. And Kingsport had passed this leather scrap that he had inscribed the words "help me" on them. And that was all that it took for the party to basically engage with Scrivenscry, attacking him and trying to get Kingsport away. Scrivenscry got away. And the reason that they're encountering him now is because he is in possession of the spell book of High Diviner Apius. That's the last key to the octet that they need. And so now they're going in. There's a number of ways this could go. I'm pretty sure they're just going to fight him to the death. But certainly there is the possibility that they try to negotiate. He's an intelligent and wily creature, and certainly is going to play up the angle of, well, you attacked me, let's not forget. Maybe you want to not do that this time. If you want to negotiate, I'll give you the spellbook if you give me my lackey back. So we'll see. But I'm pretty sure they're just going to fight him. So that's kind of where we are starting off. So it's the first of the month, the next month, that of Tarsak. And they're basically going to be starting this encounter. I have this ready from last week, but just to kind of review it, this encounter takes place at the Arboretum. I already have the map ready to go. I took off all the tokens that I didn't need anymore. I may or may not use this thing. It's just a cool little token marker. And I found out that you could put animated GIFs on Roll20. Pretty neat. But I deleted all the tokens that I needed to off of this. This is where they fought the Nether Oak to get the wand as part of the Arcane Octad. And so I had to delete a bunch of tokens, but this is all ready to go. I have all their tokens here, and I'm pretty sure I have a list because I wanted to do casters a little bit differently. Yeah, here we go. So in a recent stream, I talked about how we really needed an update to the layout of NPC monsters, especially casters, because it's kind of useless. Not that it's useless, it's just formatted in a way that's hard to follow. For instance, if this was a character sheet, I would have a section of spells and I'd have check marks for marking off spell slots. Even if this was a physical paper character sheet, I would have a place for where I could mark off and keep track of spell slots very easily. This is not. It's so hard to keep track of spell slots on a monster that's a caster. And additionally, there's a lot of spells on here that I just straight up don't need to know about. I need to know what's the strongest thing that they can do in combat. And so rather than use this, and it's kind of a pain, and I do understand that in Roll20, it kind of has a way to keep track of that anyways. It has its own build. If you purchase adventures and modules on Roll20, a lot of this stuff is taken care of for you. For instance, I think if I just double click on this, and if I alt click on it, should pull this up. Yeah, this does pull up a character sheet, and I can keep track of it here. I can click on these and keep track of it. I might end up doing that, but I think there's a lot of things that it does automatically for me. Like it rolls dice when I click on one of these, and types that stuff into chat. And so I don't know. I think I need to reset these spells as well. This might have been, I might have used these actually before, and maybe I will again, but if you're not using Roll20, just for an example, if you're using something else and want to reference, you know, a spell casting monster, it's like, how do you do it? You know, there's way too much stuff on here that's not only like I don't need to know about, but keeping track of spells and what spell slots. And really what I need to know is what's the strongest thing that they're going to do in combat. And so I, instead of using that, I think I might just use the one on Roll20. I don't know, but making some notes for myself definitely helps. To take a note that, hey, because I forgot to do this last time, and I kept using Dimension Door. Hey, they have action teleport. Scriven Scry as an Arcanothoth can just do it when he wants to. But then to remind myself, yep, these are the strongest spells they're going to use. They got Chain Lightning, Finger of Death, Banishment, and Hold Monster are kind of the strong stuff. So do that stuff. You know, I don't need to focus on much of this other stuff here. Maybe there was one that I thought could be really good that I was looking at earlier. Mirror Image. Yeah, this is the one that I want to try out. Because this could be a really cool. I completely forgot about how cool the spell was. I tend to overlook them if they're lower level, but this one for sure could be useful. So I'm going to put that in my notes as well. Oh, come on. Here, I can spell. Mirror Image. And I'm going to link to that as well. Really easy to do in Notion, which is the note-taking app that I am using. You can use whatever you want. Notion is very intuitive, and it's a great tool because it's all online. But really easy to hotlink in Notion. I just have to copy the link and come over to what I want to hotlink. Just highlight it and control paste. And there is the link. Now it opens up in a new page. Pretty handy. So yeah, these spells are going to be sort of his go-to. You know, and this very well could be another combat that someone falls, you know, and I'm fine with that happening. If somebody falls in combat, that's just part of the game. At this point in the game, that's part of what could happen, and I'm okay with this sort of character death happening because it's a threat that they are aware of and know that it's dangerous going into it. I had some possible character deaths before, which were not so satisfying because they were threats that the party didn't really know about or really have any way to prepare for. So I think I wanted to have something else on Scriven Scry. I was thinking about this earlier in the week, but I don't remember what it was. Maybe just some potions because they're starting the day with this encounter and then going into possibly another encounter and then going into the Spire of Aerial Arthas, which has a lot of threats. So I think what I'd like to also include on Scriven Scry is a couple of potions, maybe one greater healing and a couple of regular healing potions. I think that's probably good enough. Oh, of course, it's not going to be very easy to just indent one of these, is it? You know what? Let's do it this way. I can put this at the end. These all need to be indented. Nope. Sometimes the formatting does get a little wonky. So we'll put this. Just because I don't want to, force them into a corner of, well, we have to go back to the tower and long rest again, or, well, we have to short rest before we do anything else. A lot of stop and go. I kind of want to avoid that. And then the other encounter that will likely happen today, probably after today's session, we'll have everybody level up as well. But the other encounter is that they could very well avoid this too. But I'm anticipating once they have the Arcane Octad pieces, they deactivate the force field surrounding the tower of Aerial Arthas and either go directly into that support beam that takes them into the tower, or they head for the Mythalar. And here, what I plan to do is have Aerial Arthas show up. I'll give them an opportunity to interact with the Mythalar, maybe spend some time casting the Identify spell so they at least know, hey, this is your target for this section of the game. You want to try to use the Mythalar if you can. This is kind of your way out of the problem of Auriel once you go back and fight her, and then you can kind of turn back Weather. And this is probably your way out of Ethrin as well, because it's why the city can fly. But so I'll allow them to interact with and maybe figure out what it does. And then Aerial Arthas will show up. I'm planning on having him do one scream effect. Maybe somebody falls, maybe multiple people fall, maybe it's super cinematic and cool. Hopefully it's not a TPK, but I don't want, I think what I want to do is maybe I'll have him roll initiative and get a chance to see one round of what he's about, but on his turn, he's going to do the scream and then bolt. And then Tomb Tapper shows up. Because like the Tomb Tapper is part of the book content, right? And I think that's it's probably a good thing for them to encounter. They've encountered one already. They kind of know its tricks, and I can really ramp up the tension that way. I guess we'll see how they're doing. If they're, if I have 4 characters near death, maybe I won't run the Tomb Tapper, but I don't know. We'll see. But that's kind of the plan for that encounter. Last time, I took a look at the first floor of the Tower of Aerial Arthas, the Spire of Aerial Arthas. And just to do a quick review, it starts off with this long hallway that stems from this lengthy support beam, right? They enter in at the prison district here, and then make this long journey. And this is going to be pretty cool. This is all lit up inside. And while you can't see in from the outside, I think it'd be really cool if I was able, if I could describe the city as they are slowly ascending into the spire. They get to see, this 100, 200, 300 foot view. Maybe even, this looks like it goes up about halfway. So probably like 600 feet above the city, higher than any of the towers for sure. And, it's this really, really cool cinematic view of the city before they finally ascend into the spire itself. In the spire itself, this long hallway of stairs ascends into a set of double oaken doors. And I don't think this is locked, but there is a Hypnos Magen just there as sort of a guard, a guard to kind of say, like, psychically, hey, please leave or else, gonna have to call in backup or whatever, or start firing on you. And naturally that's not going to happen. Party is here for a reason. They hear chamber music coming from the interior, a very odd juxtaposition for a completely dead city. They hear raucous voices and laughter and engagement and music, clinking of glasses probably, and silverware on plates. When they enter in, there's a whole bustle of folks in very nice attire, nice gowns and suits and whatnot, all dressed to the nines, dancing, mingling about, grabbing food from servant trays, and it looks like a good time. And I have music ready for this. I wasn't able to really find exactly what I was looking for, but I'm kind of running out of time at this point. So I found some music that will work, as well as an ambient sort of voice chatter track. It's technically ambient chatter from like a shopping mall, but you know, it works. It's whatever you say it is, as long as you know it's convincing enough that people believe it, right? Additionally, within the tower, so like what this room is about, if they decide to go ahead and try to see through the illusion and try to dispel magic, the illusion will drop and they'll see that it's in its dilapidated state of being completely run down. There are 3 brains in a jar that are going to attack them. But let's talk about the other rooms and the second level. I've gone ahead because trying to navigate all of this stuff, which is just the stuff that's in the book. This is the description of all the locations in the spire. This is a lot, and I don't want to have to be referencing this on the fly. And I want to find some good middle ground between straight up memorizing and having enough that I can sort of improvise as needed. I don't want to try to memorize all this text, but what I do want to know is I want to have a general knowledge of the layout. And not just, well, this is the first floor, there's a ballroom, this is the second floor, there's some nasty stuff, this is the study. I want to know like what's in specific rooms, but not so that I have to memorize stuff. So what I've gone ahead and done is just, I can scroll up a little bit. It's just, I wrote out and gave myself like a short 1 word or maybe, you know, short sentence of what all these locations are in case I need to reference it. So, I bet I can do this. Might be easier. So for instance, if I'm looking at this here I'll pull this over. I think this might be better just to give an example of what this is kind of going to be like. I have dual monitors, so normally I have my notes on one screen and my Roll20 on a different screen. But since I'm only streaming from one screen, I can't exactly do that. So, for instance, I can just look and quick see. Obviously, I know like what the hallway and the ballroom is, but as a reminder to myself, 19C, that's the council chambers. That's and there's a note in there about the spindle being located in the stasis chamber. That's enough. That's all I need. I don't need full-on descriptions of it. I just need a reminder of, oh yeah, that's where this is. And the guard passage, obviously. 19F, there are 6 staves. This is staff storage. 19E, obviously, this is the location that has Veneranda, as it's called in the book, the liquefaction chamber. And H, members bar, right? 19G is where... you know, if you look at my notes, this is the den and the ensemble of musicians. It's kind of a lounge area, and this is where you're going to find the source of the music. J is this force bridge. Sorry, I is this force bridge, and on the other side, there's this window that they have to get to. J is the location of Everlast. It's called the Chamber of Sorcery. And I think the reason that Everlast exists here, the whole purpose of Everlast, I asked folks on the Rime of the Frostmaiden Discord, because I was thinking like, well, Veneranda is a good go-to for if you want to negotiate and get a lot of really useful information about the Spire. Just talk to Veneranda, agree to help her out, agree to go get the Staff of Power, and she'll basically tell you the layout and say like, yeah, this is kind of what you need to do. Watch out for this. Lots of the doors are trapped, so be careful before you step through doorways. But if they don't, I think the reason that Everlast exists here is if they decide that, hey, we're not going to help you, Veneranda, and she turns aggro, and they end up killing her before she can help them, then at least Everlast is here and can kind of, in a less direct way, reveal some information. He's kind of bound by the command that he's not to reveal secrets about the tower, but maybe he can kind of, you know, warn them about certain things or allude to certain things existing at the very least. Now, if both of them remain alive, then, you know, I think Everlast is just kind of a cool character. He's very much going to be inspired by Gilmore, I think. If you're a fan of Critical Role, I'm going to at least attempt it. I'm not saying it's going to go well, but I'm at least going to attempt it. That's all I can promise. That's all that you can do in life, is give it your best shot and see what happens. And if it doesn't go so well, not the end of the world. You just try it anyways. And so going up further into the Spire, I know that there is in the Chamber of Sorcery where Everlast is, the way up further, there's this sort of hidden trap door, which I think is hidden behind a pretty hefty dice roll. Let's just double check. This is J. If I remember correctly, it's like a perception 20 or investigation check of 20. Yeah, there's a secret hatch that can be spotted from the floor with a successful DC 20 perception check. Knocking on the hatch causes it to swing open. So this is a major flaw of games, I think. That is, like, you don't want to hide narrative progress behind the paywall of a good dice roll, right? What happens if they get here and no one rolls higher than a 20 to perceive this secret hatch, or that they all fail? Like, what then? Is just progress stopped? Do I need to, bolt out of the blue and have somebody reveal something that they shouldn't? Everlast suddenly is like, oh yeah, there's a secret hatch up there that I'm not supposed to tell you about, but I'm going to. So I think to avoid that weirdness, I'm either going to lower the DC or have, that'll be something that Veneranda can point out. But yeah, you don't really want to be hiding this sort of progress behind a dice roll. Because again, what happens if they all fail? Are they just stuck and they can't solve the tower? That's kind of a bummer, So I'm going to probably lower the DC for that, and maybe give some clues along the way that there are secret hidden doors, places. Maybe the light from these different sort of I don't know what you call these little alcoves where the crystals reside that summon Everlast. Maybe they reflect up and you catch a glimpse really quickly of this inconsistency in the ceiling that they'll have to go and further investigate. I don't know, but I just don't like the idea that progress through this thing could be hidden behind a good dice roll. Next up, through the tower, once they make it up through this secret hatch and find a way to get everyone up there, which in itself will be another challenge because these are 30 foot high ceilings. Gwendrel could easily get up there. Jack Forrest could easily get up there because he can summon an echo up to 30 feet. But the rest of the party might be kind of a challenge. They might have to figure out and do some creative. Someone goes up there, drops a rope, or maybe Gwendrel just flies everybody up there. Not sure. 19K. This is the dome. So this is a room that has a domed wall of force all around it. It's an invisible barrier that I think by the book to kind of show that there's something here. It is sort of frost covered, and they'll be able to see a couple of things from inside the dome. One, there's an emerald in the archway of this doorway at the end of this ovular shaped chamber. And this emerald is sort of what is like the off switch for this wall of force, right? If you can somehow get beyond the wall of force, knock the crystal out of its holster, or deactivate it, or smash it somehow, well, then you can deactivate the wall of force. Basically, turn the switch off. And there are definitely some ways that they could do that. Like I said, again, we got a character that can summon an echo and make his way over there, and that could certainly be one solution. The other things that they see here are these two living blades of disaster, and these are nasty, nasty things. For starters, I mean, they're just really cool just to describe them. There are these sort of negative spaces in the air that are blade shaped and sort of hovering. Will attack anybody that gets close enough. But just to take a look at the stats, I think I need to go back over to the other layer. If I pull up the token information, and I'm actually going to put these pages back together because I don't think I need to go back and forth between the two now. If we look at the stats for the Living Blade of Disaster, also, like, how cool is this picture? That's just really badass. If we look at the stats here, it's not that they have a high AC or that they have a lot of hit points, is that they hit really hard. They've got this preemptive strike thing, which is they reaction can just attack something that starts a turn within 5 feet of them. Then they also have, not that their attack by itself is that strong. It's a +6 to hit, which is, not too bad at this point. It's like middle of the road. Once characters get to like 9th and 10th level, they're going to be having a +8 to maybe +12 in some cases. So +6 is maybe a little bit below average, but 4d12 force damage, and that's not even like the hard part. The thing that makes this really nasty is they crit on 18, 19, or 20. And I know that we are using special rules for critical hits, which is in this campaign, if you roll a crit, it's not double the dice, it is full damage dice, and then you roll on top of that. So they're not like doubling a 1 or something like that. And I think what I'm going to do here is I'm using these special crit rules to replace that. Because otherwise, if I was going to say, yep, on a crit, they just get full dice and then another damage dice, like this is an automatic kill for the anybody in the party, whoever this hits. And that's on an 18 or up. If I did this the way that I'm doing it for everybody else, it would be 12d12 plus 12d12. It's automatic 144 damage plus 12d12, which would be insane. That is, there's nobody in the group that has that many hit points. That's an automatic insta-death. And maybe even permadeath, depending on how well that 12d12 rolls. Right? So I think instead, I'm just going to say that these special crit rules replace that rule set. And, so when they crit, it's not 4d12, which is already like okay-ish damage. 12d12 is a lot. It's gonna sting even then. So I think that's what I'm going to do. Otherwise, it's just insta death, maybe even insta permanent death. And that's before we go do more dangerous shit. So I don't know that I want to do that. After that, there's this pretty nasty trap it goes away after triggering 3 times. It is triggered once a creature passes through it, and you could probably even dispel it if you wanted to. Let's take a look here. I think it's listed. Yes. The magical trap marked T. It's a 10-foot square, and it triggers whenever a creature that is not a construct or undead enters the area for the first time. You can't trigger it more than once, but after it's triggered 3 times, it vanishes. So I imagine you could either... I think this is, it's a 10-foot square. So it's a little unclear if it's just, it says 10-foot square, not 10-foot cube. So I'm wondering if you manage to jump over it or fly over it or whatever, or, swap places with your echo. If that would, swapping places would probably not trigger it. But, yeah, that's interesting because it does say 10-foot square, not 10-foot cube. So I bet you could probably jump over it and not trigger it. But the first person to go through that DC 17 Flesh to Stone spell, which they have seen examples of that spell in other areas in Ethran so far. Flesh to Stone just turns your body to stone. It's is kind of what it says it does. You're basically petrified. On a successful on a failed save, it's restrained and its flesh begins to harden. It's restrained, so it's not an instantly you're turned to stone. It's you're restrained and your flesh begins to turn to stone. I had that wrong. At the end of each of its turns, it makes more con saves. You need to save 3 times, and the spell ends. If it fails 3 times, it's turned to stone and subjected to the petrified condition for the duration. So that's kind of how that works. I needed to refresh myself, and I just did, so there we go. That's that trap. Once again, can only be triggered 3 times. Can't be triggered multiple times by the same person, and after 3 times, it is donezo. Beyond that, in L, this is the room called the Testing Chamber. Has 8 doors. Each one of these doors has a symbol that corresponds to a school of magic, written in Draconic somewhere in this chamber. And I think this is this is the next room over. written in Draconic somewhere in this chamber is instructions to basically speak your master's name. Essentially, what you need to do is find, you could choose whatever door you want to, and as long as you speak the master, the high mage of that tower, their name, that door will open. Do it wrong, and there is a demon that gets released, I think is how this works. Yeah, I think if you do it wrong, the door opens and there's a barbed devil in that corridor. You can't see into here. Once the door opens, you can see, it's nothing but darkness. Even like magical dark vision can't see through it. Basically, there's only like a small handful of niche abilities that can actually see within here. So if they do this wrong, they're going to have to fight some barbed devils. Barbed devils, let's take a look, because I had not reviewed this yet. I don't actually know. So these are challenge rating 5. I wonder if we have tokens for these. I should get that ready as well. They have AC 15, 110 hit points. They make piercing damage to any creature grappling it at the start of their turn. Makes 3 melee attacks. Alternately, you can use its Hurl Flame twice. Okay, so the grapple is, there's no special effect that allows them to grapple. It's just, oh, I see. It's to any creature grappling it. It's not that they need to grapple something. It's if you happen to grapple a barbed devil, it's got these spines that are going to fuck up, going to give you a bad day. Let me make sure. I want to see if we've got tokens for this, because I want to have at least one barbed devil token just in case. The module has barbed devil, so yeah, it should have a token, which we have here. This module is pretty good about giving you the things you need. If you purchase this on Roll20, it gives you a lot of the tokens and things that you need already. So we'll have this off to the side just in case, and this is going to go into my GM layer. All the dynamic lighting should be done, because this is official content. Looks like it's pretty good. So they could fight a barbed devil, depending on if they mess up the doors. Through the room following, this room that is extremely dark, is the Chamber of the Ebon Star, I think it's called. 19M, Chamber of the Ebon Star. In here, they can't see anything except for this beautiful star field, right? And it's basically a three-dimensional depiction of the night sky as the Ethrinian mages would know it. It's the observable universe, basically, in a three-dimensional representation. It has 8 other chairs that all sort of depict one of the school's magic. As long as you sit in, if you're a caster, if you sit in a chair that corresponds with your school of magic, this starry field turns kind of into like a portal, which takes you up to the study. The other 3 rooms in here, 19N is the stasis chamber. This is the location of the spindle and the whole reason that Ithrin fell to begin with. The mages of Ithrin were sort of scouring the lands for lost Austrian artifacts, found this spindle and moved it to the stasis chamber for study. Accidentally activated it, oops, and turns out it's basically like a magical EMP. It sort of, it activated for a second. There was this huge blast that radiated and basically turned off magic for all of Ithrin, including the Mythalar, and that's why Ithrin fell. It fell, I think, 4 years prior to the fall of the other Netherese cities, but there's really cool artwork that goes along with this too. I think I could pull it up from here. Let's close this. This is the stasis chamber. Oh no, where is the artwork for this? It might be here. Yeah, I get to show this. How cool is that? It's this circular room with this this spindle that is still just sort of hovering in air. It has this purplish white light swirling around it as it spins slowly. And there are all these marks on the brick walls surrounding it and the floor that indicate some sort of explosion. So that'll be really cool to show the players. In the other side, 19O. This is the library, and it's got a bunch of, you know, fallen books and scrolls and all sorts of stuff. You can find a scroll of the comet, which is a pretty nasty scroll, which they could use on Oriel if they wanted to. Probably don't want to use it here in Ithran. It's up to 1 mile away. You can summon this comet. It creates a 50-foot deep, 500-foot radius crater. You got to make a DC 20 dex save if you're in that radius. Otherwise, you take 30 D10 force damage or half on a successful one. It's real nasty. You don't want to be in the blast radius of this thing. But it's something that they could use. Also, I thought this would be a really good place to include our NPC named Esther. She had fallen through the top of Irialarth's spire, presumably in this window here up top. And I thought maybe she could be in the study somewhere, but I think this one also makes a lot of sense. Either one of these makes sense, but I think just for purposes of like the narrative, she probably found a safe place to hide, and maybe she even knows a little bit about the layout of Irialarth's study. But she is resting unconscious. She took a pretty nasty fall, and she's been using an artifact to kind of keep her hidden from Irialarthus. A long time ago, one of my players who was playing Sarah Gritz, our caster, said part of the end game, part of the thing that he wants to do with the character, is have some way to tie her to another campaign that we're in. And wants to be able to cast this spell that I forget what the spell is, but it's some way to transit across the planes of existence. And one of the key components is you need some artifact or something from that new plane, from that realm. And knowing that she wanted to, and they wanted to do that, I thought, the campaign that they want to have some ties to is in Exandria, the setting of Critical Role. And one of the artifacts that I thought that Irialarthus could have found is one of the beacons. Small spoilers for the Critical Role setting. But it's a really powerful artifact that belongs to a certain civilization in Exandria. And it has kind of to do with time magic. It's an artifact that kind of plays with the idea of multiple timelines, multiple possibilities, and possible threads of existence. And so I thought this would be a really cool artifact to tie into, since it is pretty well known by now that Irialarthus and his mages were interested in chronomancy. They were interested in magic that could manipulate time. And so this, I thought, would be a cool artifact in the campaign in the world of Exandria. This is not exactly what this thing does. It has other specific things that it does. It can give you this thing called a mode to possibility, which is basically like a free reroll as you kind of gaze into it, and you get to see these infinite possibilities of timelines, of possible versions of yourself. This one is a bit broken. The one that I'm going to include here is broken. It doesn't exactly work that way. You might see timelines of yourself that all kind of they're like the worst versions of yourself. It's not a fun place to go, but for Esther, it was a way to hide herself from Irialarthus. She doesn't like to do it, but then again, it's better than encountering Irialarthus. So she is, she's taken quite a bit of psychic damage from having to use this thing, and is clutching it unconscious here in the library. I thought this is a cool place to put her. Excuse me, cat. Following after that, I think also in the library they can find a key which leads you out into the balcony here, which is 19p. This is just a balcony that overlooks Ithran, which Irialarthus probably used to give speeches and, be, hey, look at me, how flashy I am. The people of Ithran really liked him, so it wasn't like, look how great I am, but like, let's talk to the people. Following after that, if they finally make it up through this portal into the study, that is where we face off sort of once and for all against Uriel Arthas, and there are a few Nothics in here as well. They can find a bunch of cool spells and scrolls and whatnot, and Uriel Arthas' spellbook, his Staff of Power. This is the final showdown. The thing that they're going to need to do in order to be able to attune themselves to the Mythallar in GTFO from Aetherin back to Icewind Dale. This will be the final boss of this particular part of the game. They will then head back into Icewind Dale, showdown against Auriel, and that presumably would be the conclusion of the campaign. And it could either go that way. I think you also find the scroll of Tarask summoning somewhere in the study, which, hey, if you want to push the red button and go Armageddon, you could totally do that. It would probably defeat Auriel. It would probably ruin 10 towns. So, you know, column A, column B, I guess. Or they could summon the comet, which also could be pretty nasty. Or they might just decide to go back in time. They might activate the staff, use the staff to activate the obelisk, and, you know, go back 1,800 years and stop Aetherin from falling. Maybe even stop Karsus from being a jackass and severing the weave with Mistral. So they have a lot of options. They also have the possibility of going back to Grimskala, going back to the Island of Solstice, and figuring out, you know, why that shrine to Shar exists. In my campaign, I included a little bit of Shar, not ton of Shar. If you're not sure who she is like the yin to the yang of Selûne. Selûne being the goddess of the moon. Selûne is her dark counterpart. They are sisters, basically, if deities can be called sisters. And there was a pretty long, like centuries long warring between them because Shar wanted to bless her domain with life and give it more change and growth. And Shar wanted to keep things as is. And that was like the first conflict between these two ancient deities. And through this conflict was born the goddess Mistral, who was sort of a neutral in the middle version. You know, she was the goddess of magic. There were a lot of other goddesses that came out of this, a lot of other things, but she, you know, this was like the one that's relevant to this campaign. And so Shar now, as I'm running this campaign, sees an opportunity. Auriel sort of came to her and said, like, hey, if you do me a favor, I'll bring you followers, basically. And so she is responsible for the permanent night. Auriel is responsible for the permanent winter. And Shar is sort of seeing an opportunity to, you know, bring followers to herself in the form of, hey, look at all this bad stuff that has happened to you and your loved ones. You know what would be better than that? I can help you forget all of that. You know, she's the goddess of shadows and secrecy and of caverns and dark places and of forgetting. And she can take all that pain away if all you'll do is come and follow her. And it's a trap. You know, it's not really what she promises. And now that we've got a character that is sort of climbing the ranks of the followers of Selûne, she sees an opportunity to maybe like take a small jab at Selûne by taking out Gwendril. And now there's another reason too, because we got a new follower of Selûne. So they might, I don't know, they might go back and figure out what's there. That could be a way that the campaign continues. If they want to do that, they'd basically go to the Shadowfell, and I have no idea what's in there, but I'm willing to give it a try. So we'll see, but that's many sessions down the road. This is where we're at now. I'm maybe getting way ahead of myself because we basically have an encounter with Scrivenscry to start. Then we've got maybe an encounter. We have a small little run-in with Uriel Arthas and a Tomb Tapper, and then the beginnings of the Spire, which is this really cool ballroom setting. And I imagine this is we probably won't get any further than what's in the ballroom tonight, but always good to be prepared. And as I've mentioned before, I think it's easier, at least for me, to not prep individual sessions, but to prep sections of the game. I'd rather know more than I need than too little, right? I think, because I don't know how much they're going to get through. If I tried to prep just one session, I might go, well, okay, we've got an encounter and we've got this Tomb Tapper, and I'm going to prep the ballroom. But what happens if they don't do that encounter with the Tomb Tapper and they go right to the ballroom? And then they get through this and I go, well, hold on, we have to end 2 hours into this because I didn't research what's past this. I'd rather over prep and have a general idea and prep a section of the campaign rather than just trying to prep one session. It's way easier to prep an entire section than just a singular session of the game. So, yeah, rather be over prepared than under. So that's kind of my take. I think we're gonna end it here and gonna give my voice a rest. I'm gonna start my game in about an hour, and I didn't really go through the notes like I normally do. I am using basically the lazy, oh my gosh, drawing a blank. The Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master guide to preparing the game. I'm using that sort of an outline. So I've got, reviewing of the characters, my opening scene, the different scenes I expect in the game. I got secrets and clues, all this stuff. I didn't really go through that this stream because I did all this last time, and I wanted to go over some other things this time, but that's going to do it, I think, for today. We'll be back again next Friday, here every Friday, 9 p.m. for Late Night Game Chat, my commentary on D&D, and my thoughts on stuff that I've picked up in my time of running, as well as be back here on Sunday, every Sunday, 5 p.m. Central for Sunday night game prep. And if you missed any of these streams or past streams, you can find my stuff now on YouTube. The link is in my channel description in a couple different places, or just, I think you can probably just search bonus action -0. You can find me on there as well. So thank you for sticking around and checking out the channel. We'll be back here again Friday night, 9 p.m. Central, and next Sunday, 5 p.m. Central. See you next time.